Some motel rooms are cheap, some are quiet, but some, no matter how long you stay, never truly let you leave. Room 217 at the Cedar Pines Motel has been there for decades. Guests come and go, but somehow, the room always stays full. Tonight, we're going to find out why. Ever since Jake started traveling for work, he'd grown used to the quiet hum of the highway, the dim glow of gas stations at 2 in the morning, and the brief anonymity that came with sleeping in motels far from home. Most of them were forgettable. A bed, a small TV, and the faint smell of disinfectant that promised clean sheets. But there was one motel along Route 82 in the Midwest that he would never forget. It all started innocently enough. After 12 long hours of driving, Jake spotted a faded sign Cedar Pines Motel vacants. The neon flickered unevenly, paint peeled from the letters, and the parking lot had cracks long forgotten, but he didn't care. He just needed sleep. At the front desk, an elderly woman with quiet, unreadable eyes handed him a key. "Room 217, she said, her voice flat. Jake took the key and walked down a long, narrow hallway. The carpet was worn thin, and the air smelled faintly of old perfume mixed with something else he couldn't quite name. Pictures of faded landscapes lined the walls, their colors muted by time. He opened the door and stepped inside. Everything looked normal to normal, almost sterile. The bed was neatly made. The bathroom was spotless, and the TV blinked with static before switching to the local news. Jake sighed and set down his bag. For the first time in hours, he felt a wave of relief wash over him. He was tired, and this was just another room. That night, at exactly 3:30 a.m., Jake woke up. At first, he thought it was the TV flickering on its own. Then came the faint scratching noise from the corner near the closet. "Just the wind," he muttered, trying to fall back asleep. But the scratching grew louder, dragging slightly across the floor. It wasn't the wind. Jake switched on the bedside lamp. The room was empty. The closet door was shut tight. The bathroom light was off. He tried to convince himself it was just an old building creaking, settling in the night. The next morning, at breakfast in the tiny, deserted lobby, he decided to ask the receptionist about the room. "Oh, room 217, she said, her eyes flicking toward the hallway for just a second. "It's never really empty. No matter what, someone always seems to be in there." Jake frowned, confused. "That doesn't make any sense." The woman leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Nothing about 217 makes sense." He shrugged it off as an old motel superstition, paid his bill, and got back on the road. A week later, work brought him back down the same stretch of highway. As he approached the turnoff for Route 82, a strange curiosity got the better of him. He found himself pulling into the motel parking lot. He walked inside. The lobby was empty. The air smelled exactly the same. The key for room 217 was sitting right there on the front desk, as if waiting for him. He took it. The hallway seemed to stretch on endlessly this time, the same faded pictures watching him pass. He reached the door and unlocked it. The room looked just as ordinary as before, but the moment he stepped inside, a cold shiver ran down his spine. He could hear it. A soft, rhythmic sound, almost like breathing. Jake froze, his heart pounding in his chest. "Hello?" he called out, trying to sound braver than he felt. There was no answer. He walked further into the room, and the sound seemed to follow him, always just out of sight. The bathroom light flickered erratically. The closet door creaked open just a little, as if someone had been hiding inside. Goosebumps ran down his arms. Something about this room felt alive, aware of his presence. Then he heard it a whisper, coming from near the window. "Why are you here?" Jake spun around. No one was there. The voice was soft, teasing, and disturbingly familiar. It sounded almost like his own voice. "What? Who's there?" he stammered, his voice shaking. Silence. Then the whisper came again. "You can leave, but you never really do." The room felt smaller, the air heavier, almost as if the walls were closing in on him. Over the next few weeks, Jake became obsessed. He returned to room 217 again and again, each visit confirming what he already feared. He found cold spots that moved around the room, heard whispers that seemed to come from nowhere, watched the lights flicker, and noticed objects slightly out of place from where he'd left them. Once, he swore he saw the outline of a person sitting on the edge of the bed, but whenever he turned on the lights, it vanished. No one believed him when he tried to tell them. His friends laughed it off as a good story. His coworkers thought he was joking. Even his family just shrugged, telling him he was working too hard. But Jake knew the truth. Room 217 wasn't just different. It was waiting. One night, determined to get proof, he brought a small digital voice recorder. He placed it on the nightstand, then sat in the chair across from the bed, watching, listening. The silence was deafening and a whir. Then another. Just past midnight, a whisper broke the silence. Why do you keep coming back? Jake held his breath. The recorder's light was on. The whisper came again, clearer this time. You can't leave. Suddenly, the chair next to him scraped loudly across the floor. The bedspread twitched, as if someone had just sat down. The lights in the room flickered violently, strobing in the darkness. And then, complete silence. When he played the recording back the next morning in the safety of his car, his blood ran cold. It wasn't just the whisper he had heard. There were other voices, those in team, snippets of conversations he didn't recognize. Faint laughter, footsteps, doors closing and opening. They were the voices of people who had long checked out, or perhaps had never checked out at all. Determined to understand what was happening, Jake decided to return one final time. He told no one where he was going. As he walked down the familiar hallway, it felt like a tunnel, the air thick and heavy, almost solid. The door to room 217 loomed ahead, a dark rectangle in the dim light. He stepped inside. The room was as ordinary as ever. The bed was made. The TV blinked static for a moment before going dark. The closet door was slightly ajar. As soon as he was fully inside, the door clicked shut behind him. He heard the lock turn. He tried the handle, but it wouldn't budge. The key was gone. From the corner near the window, a shadow moved. It wasn't a person, just a deepening of the darkness. He felt unseen, eyes watching him. You can stay, if you want, whispered a calm, almost friendly voice. Jake swallowed hard, his throat dry. I need to leave. The voice laughed softly. It wasn't a cruel laugh, but it was a laugh that made him feel like he had no choice in the matter. You're already part of the room now, it said, and with that, the lights went out completely, plunging him into total darkness. The door remained locked. He tried to call out, to scream, but no sound left his mouth. The next morning, the receptionist found room 217, just as she always did, tidy, quiet, and perfectly clean. The bed was perfectly made. The bathroom was spotless. Jake's car was gone from the parking lot, but his belongings were sitting there, neatly packed on the dresser. When the next guest asked about him, the receptionist just shook her head. 217. It never really empties, she said with a knowing look. No one ever saw Jake again. He had finally checked in for good. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another one. See you next time.